What's up, mother truckers? We are the Thralls of Metal. Shredlord here.
Necrotic Nick. And we are going to talk about a much overdue subject we really haven't brought up very much.
And we apologize.
Black metal. What got us into black metal? I figure that's a good starting point for that, even though we're probably going to be reviewing black metal albums coming out in the future. We really haven't brought up black metal very much.
Or, yeah, at all or too much, which is stupid because Nick and I really like this genre a lot.
Oh, yeah.
So.
It's a fun one. It's over the top. It's ridiculous. It's evil and creepy.
Satan!
So we're going to go over some albums that got us into the whole style. So, Joe, would you like to start us off with one album that got you into it?
Yes. Now, every genre has staples as far as bands and artists go. To me, this is a staple if you are just entering the realm. It is the band that got me into black metal. It is, of course, Mayhem. Now, the crazy stories that are all true, for the most part, and the lore and everything about this band intrigued me, which is how I got interested in them in the first place. And then once I learned all about the band and all the crazy stories and all the church burnings and Euronymous and
murder, suicide,
skull fragments, and
Jesus Christ, man.
Pretty funny suicide notes, if you can call it that, you know? Suicide notes with a sense of humor.
Apologize for firing a gun indoors in the suicide
It's a bloody
note.
mess.
Yeah, okay.
But anyway, Mayhem. And what was cool about Mayhem is they really embody, I think, what a lot of black metal is about. It's just evil sounding as shit. This album is very raw, which I like. It has a lot of real grindy guitar tones, very unorthodox, you know, the low...
Yeah, Attila's vocal style on that was very... He sounded like they just resurrected a corpse to sing, which is cool. It added to the whole feel of it.
Yeah, because, I mean, you could tell these guys just wanted to be the living embodiment of death.
Yes.
And they did a damn good job.
That one's also on my list, too. If you want the root of Norway's Norwegian black metal sound, that's one of those albums right there.
This is it, yeah.
It's great.
Yeah, and songs like Life Eternal and Freezing Moon are some of my favorite tracks off that album for sure. And if you ever read the lyrics or take the time to read the lyrics, like Life Eternal is a pretty deep, awesome set of lyrics. So everything about Mayhem was really cool to me. So they started out, they dragged me in.
This one was also on our mutual list. This was my first exposure to this band. This was Immortal, Sons of Northern Darkness. Now, I remember seeing this at a media play, which was forever ago. It sort of doesn't exist anymore.
Rip media play.
I just saw the cover and I was like, okay, this is black metal. This is the thing that I've been kind of looking for and I've heard about, and I got to check this out. This is just it's ridiculous looking. It's kind of self-aware in the fact, like, yeah, we're these evil panda creatures with axes and spikes all over us. And I mean, I kind of went into it like, all right, this might be a wash here. Like, all right, but I'm gonna check it out, and I was completely blown away. I love this album. This is one of my favorites by them.
I think it's one of the best albums in this entire genre, truthfully.
One
it's
by
a
one,
masterpiece. Tyrant.
Oh, dude, Tyrants is fantastic. Within the Dark Mind, it's an awesome album, and I think. Like contrary to Mayhem, this was more about musicality. There was a lot of catchy riffs.
Way more
in here.
polished, more melody for sure. You know, it was a different side of the coin. It still kept a lot of the roots, but it added a little bit different stuff than what Mayhem had.
Now, their earlier stuff was a lot more close to Mayhem, like that very raw black metal
thrashy.
Yeah, but like somewhere along the line, they changed up that sound and kind of brought in this epic sense, and the songwriting improved immensely. And I don't think it was like a sellout maneuver. I think it was just like, no, we really want to add something to this whole subgenre because it's going to be interesting.
Yeah, and not many bands with 3 guys can sound so fucking huge.
One of the best 3 pieces in metal, flat out.
Well, let's stick on this train because I fucking love I love Immortal, man. So, at the heart of winter!
That is my favorite Immortal album.
Definitely. I actually just took a really long car trip and listened to this entire album, and it keeps the highways a lot more interesting at nighttime. I'm cruising through, man. But what's great about this is this was actually the first
Yeah.
Immortal album that I heard that got me into Immortal and went, holy fuck, these guys are awesome.
See, I didn't get into that one until after Sons of Northern Darkness, but that is my favorite.
Yeah.
I adore that album.
There's not that many songs on here, but each song is a fucking masterpiece. It kicks ass the whole way through, like just good riff after good riff after good riff after good riff. Epic moment, more good riffs.
Longer songs, really refined song structure.
Great melody.
Oh my god.
Great melody.
Like something that
Epicness.
visceral could be catchy too.
Yeah.
Like, I really dug that.
Yeah. So this is a must. If you're wondering like, maybe what are some black metal albums if you're not familiar with the genre, basically we're going to tell you every single one we're going to show you, but this is a must for sure.
100%. Emperor and the Nightside Eclipse. This was honestly one of my first exposures to the more raw black metal sound, but this was also different in the sense it was very symphonic too. Like they actually threw a lot of keyboards in. I remember hearing the song Ino Satana on a Century Media compilation. I think it was Identity 2, and it just blew me away. Like at that point I was really into death metal, still really into death metal, but this was a different kind of heavy. It was more evil sounding. It sounded creepy and like very gothic at the same time, and I really dug the songwriting. Isan is a fantastic musician. His solo work's incredible too, but Jesus, man, he really came up with some amazing stuff on here. Just very epic. It was not the more raw sound like you associate with more Mayhem or Dark Throne. It was definitely more polished, but it was still gritty, and there was a lot of musicality in this. Like a lot of people associate black metal with more raw, just kind of visceral, almost kind of punk DIY kind of shit. This was definitely different than that, and I still adore this. This is one of my favorite black metal albums of all time.
Ladies and gentlemen, it's time to bring the black box to the altar.
Oh, the dramatic impact.
Ah! Merciful fucking Fate, man. I love the shit out of them. I discovered King Diamond at a much earlier age, but I definitely consider them part of an early black metal,
Proto black metal.
Proto black metal. Right here, Melissa was the first album by them in 1983, 4, somewhere around there. And I believe it was their first album, period. And songs like Curse of the Pharaoh and Black Funeral really showcase like some excellent fucking songwriting. You've never heard a vocalist quite like the King.
Nope.
And I thought that was cool. And even though sometimes some of the falsettos can be, a little much for some people, I really enjoyed it because Sherman and Dennerman are a really great guitar duo, and their platform for the King to put his vocals on top of and their songwriting, those three together really put it all together.
Incredible musicians.
Yeah, and created some really cool early evil sounding but yet still melodic and epic tunes.
Yeah, while I'm not a fan of King Diamond per se, like the voice is too much for me. The musicality on those early Merciful Fate albums is incredible. You can't deny that. They're awesome. They're incredibly well written, and they had that awesome creepy atmosphere. It was almost kind of tongue-in-cheek in a way, mostly due to King Diamond's voice, in my opinion. But I like that. It kind of reminded me like 80s horror movies and stuff like that, and that's cool. So, on to another proto-black metal band, Celtic Frost, Morbid Tales. This was my first exposure to Celtic Frost, period, and I absolutely adore this band. The guitar tone I thought was unique. It was real, like, kind of thrashy, but there was extra grit to it. Like, it just sounded nasty and snarling. And the first song I ever heard by them was Procreation of the Wicked, which was a little slower, more mid-tempo song, and I just absolutely adored it. Like, this is just a nasty sounding
Evil
song.
Sex.
Yeah. And of course, Into Crypt of Rays, one of my favorite songs by them. This also had kind of that early punky D-beat sound too, which I really got into as well because I like punk. And I like this because it doesn't have any of the Norway sound. They're from Switzerland, so they kind of really crafted their own thing. Like this kind of came about as they had Hellhammer early, It was a lot more raw, and they wanted to do something slightly more polished later on, and this was it. And this is a killer album from start to finish. One of my favorites by them. Awesome band.
After I got into Mayhem, I was like, well, I like this shit. I need to find some other shit around this shit. So, of course, I stumbled upon Celtic Frost as well, with this lovely H.R. Geiger artwork on the front cover, to Megatherion. And what I love about this album is it's once again really it's everything. It's doomy at times, it's thrashy at times, it's all over the place, but the bottom line is that it's dark and heavy. And even though I think the production's pretty decent,
yeah.
like better than the Mayhem production, but it's still very raw and visceral for sure. The buzzsaw guitar tones, which are just fucking cut.
And Circle of the Tyrants.
Oh yeah,
dude, I've heard countless bands cover that. Opeth.
Opeth does a killer job.
Yeah, you know, there's a lot of love for this album in particular, and this band in general. They're incredible. Unfortunately, they're not around anymore, but they're still a Triptychon, which is still Thomas Gabriel's project, and it sounds awesome.
So yeah, give a little love to that Celtic Frost.
It's a must.
Let that frost make your nipplies hard.
All right, on to another famous black metal band, Dark Throne, Total Death. Now, I remember back in 2000, I saw Pantera, Morbid Angel, Soulfly, and Nothing Face at our own sports arena here in Toledo that no longer exists.
It was a cool venue.
It was a cool venue. Bad acoustics, but cool venue. Now, I remember seeing Morbid Angel for the first time. I think that was the most evil thing ever. And I remember Phil coming on stage and singing Where the Slime Live with them. And he was rocking a Dark Throne shirt. Now, I remember, like, back in my early days of collecting Metal Maniacs magazine, I remember seeing stuff about this band. I was like, well, Phil likes them. I'm going to check them out. It was the Transylvanian Hunger one. Now, I didn't find that when I found Total Death, which I just went by on the title alone. I was like, all right. This
not
album,
half death. This not part of the way to total death.
This album's not fucking around. And this was that more raw sound that I had been wondering about. Like, this was my first exposure to, like, the real, like, Norwegian black metal sound. And, like, it was gritty. It was kind of punky. Really high gain on those squealing guitars. And, you know, they're real nasty. Like, they weren't like Attila's vocals. They were just real screamy and, yeah, like, it sounded like they recorded them on a microphone that was wrapped in a wet towel. And
through a pterodactyl filter.
It was just nasty sounding, and initially it was like, what the fuck, but the more I listened to it, it was like, this is really, really good. Like, this kind of captures a whole feeling. This isn't polished at all, and I kind of like that.
Yeah. And
I became a huge Dark Throne fan after this. So, yeah, the rest is history. I own almost every studio album, I think. So, yeah, Dark Throne rules.
Well, after getting into some of that stuff, I went to an Opeth concert many moons ago at St. Andrews Hall, I believe, in Michigan, and I saw this band, Enslaved, open up for Opeth, and I remember thinking, normally, I hate to be that guy, but a lot of times when I go see a band, I'm not looking forward to the openers unless there's somebody I already know, you know? I'm just that guy that goes to concerts. When I go, I like to know what I'm listening to, and I like the band. So sometimes I'm kind of an asshole when it comes to the openers, and I don't give a shit.
Comfort zone.
I know. I'm a piece of shit. I get it. But Enslaved was badass. Like, I'm just standing there talking, and then, you know, some riff catches my ear and go, oh, okay. So after that, I went out and I was like, oh, what's a pretty popular album by this band to check out? And I discovered Rune. And why Rune is so cool and why Enslaved was so cool, and Nick and I were just talking about this, is everything that they added to that. You know, like, it was a lot of progressive elements, and it was still melodic, it was still heavy, they're a very complete band overall, and I think they're one of these bands that could probably do whatever the fuck they wanted as far as music goes.
Yeah.
But
they pretty much have.
Yeah, they pretty much have. But the overall blend, you know, it's almost like a recipe, right? When you're cooking something, a dash of this, a dash of that. This album to me is a perfect blend of a lot of different things, including some of that early blackened, thrashy.
It's still there too. Like Fusion of Sense and Earth, one of my favorite songs on there. Especially the closing riff is just so fucking heavy.
Dude.
And the title track, like you really get the proggy feel on that one, especially. I've only seen them do that one live once too, and I really would love to see them incorporate that in the set.
You know what's crazy? I've only seen them open up for Opeth, so the next time they come around, I have to go.
I've seen them 5 times.
I don't mean to brag, but I've seen them 5 times.
So I guess we'll just continue on with the Enslaved theme here. This is Below the Lights. This was one of the first Enslaved albums I ever heard. I also heard them on a compilation, I think it was called The Dark Psyche, and it was, I think, The Crossing or Queen of Night that was on the compilation. But I ended up going out and picking this up, and this was right around the turn more towards the proggier side. A lot of the songs were more mid-tempo, there were more ambient moments, and this was something I hadn't heard in black metal yet. Like, you know, I heard the symphonic range, and I heard, like, you know, the more early stuff, and then the Norwegian, like, raw stuff. This was very, very different. And it was also Viking themed, which I thought was kind of cool. So you got some interesting history lessons, and it was just a really amazing album. Like, it was unique, much like we were talking about before. There isn't a lot of bands that sound like Enslaved, and especially at this point when they really changed their sound. I think it was the album before this, they really started shifting towards prog, and from this album on, it just keeps getting better, in my opinion. Incredible album, jam the shit out of it. It's pure love. And
continuing on a theme, insert album here. Merciful Fate's Don't Break the Oath. Of course, I was obsessed with Melissa, so I immediately went out and got the next one in line, which was done right after 84, 85-ish. And basically, it's nothing different than the first one. It's just a continuation on of that great evil songwriting style of, you know, the dual guitars, very evil. And to this day, man.
Epic album cover.
If you've never heard the Sherman and Denner project that they have with, oh man, the lead singer of, like, Death Hammer? Something like that. I forget. Sean Peck's the singer's name. I forget what his individual band is. But that project's really badass, too. You know, this Sean Peck kind of has a little bit of King Diamond, a little bit of Rob Halford vibe. But what always made Merciful Fate stick out, and while King Diamond, like, worked with a lot of badass musicians, and like, the solo albums I adore as well, you know, but there's just a certain evilness and an old school feel to the early Merciful Fate albums, especially Melissa and Don't Break the Oath. The Oath itself, the song The Oath, is one of my favorite Merciful Fate songs ever. So, yeah, once again, it wasn't anything different than what they did on the first album, but to me it was just a continuation, you know, keep tweaking on the songwriting, tweaking on the leads, and there's just that vibe that the King Diamond solo albums just don't have. So
there's a little more campiness in the King Diamond ones.
Yes.
I mean,
let me help you out of the chair.
He's a unique guy.
I love the game.
All right, on to quite possibly a far more popular band, at least well known. Dimmu Borgir, Death Cult Armageddon. This was the first time I ever heard this band, and this was, whereas Emperor had elements of symphonic structure and keyboards and such, this was the band that really took on symphonic death metal, or death metal, black metal. Even though there's actually elements of death metal in this too when you really listen to it.
Oh yeah.
Now this band got a lot of flack for being like the pop band in black metal, them and Cradle of Filth, which I never got into. But these guys were incredibly talented musicians, and I really just appreciated the songwriting and how it was really a departure from almost everything else that was happening in black metal.
Yeah.
Now granted, it was more accessible, and of course the more true cult fans hated it. I still really like this album, especially the song Progeny is the Great Apocalypse. That sounds like Satan pimp strutting his way into a room. It's awesome. I fucking love it. It like there's like Lord of the Rings epicness in terms of like the film scores. I mean, here lately, I'm not the biggest fan of them anymore, but their earlier work, I still like. It's still fun. Yeah, it's more polished than probably anything else on my list. But it got me there. I saw them in Ozfest 2004, I believe. Yeah.
Same.
They put on a killer show.
Yeah, they did.
And yeah, it's a good deal. Definitely check it out if you haven't heard it.
And last but not least for me, going back down a trip of Celtic Frost Lane. So I believe they went an entire 15 or 16 years, something crazy long hiatus, and then they finally came out with Monotheist, which, in my opinion, is one of the most brutal albums ever.
That is one of the most heavy guitar tones I've ever heard.
Everything about this album screams brutal and heaviness. You can't get any better. Like, if they went back and tried to remaster it, I don't know what you would try to refix.
No, you can't.
Like,
there's nothing wrong with it.
No,
that mix is perfect.
To me, this is one of those perfect albums.
Yep.
All the songs are fucking killer.
Analoyum. Analoyum, holy shit, that is one of the heaviest songs ever.
I can't say half of these anymore.
That's the one I was talking
Yeah.
about.
As Abysmi Valdath. And then
Ground.
Synagoga
Satane?
Satane. The Synagogue of Satan? I hope so.
All right.
We hope so. But anyway, after a 16-year hiatus, sometimes you don't know if a band's going to come back and suck ass or just totally rule ass. So, Celtic Frost really ruled ass, and I think they're an incredibly, unless you're into the genre, I think they're an incredibly underrated metal band. They have a lot to offer fans of heavy music, and they just don't get the popular love that they should.
They go for heavy. They go for some of them heavy. Like, that is one of the heaviest albums I think I own.
It's fucking awesome.
And it's not like a lot of complex riffing or anything like that. It is a lot of feel and just pure darkness. Like, it is...
Tapping the Vein by Sodom has kind of that similar feel too. That's a fucking heavy, brutal album too.
Sometimes all you need is just some nasty, heavy riffs.
That's all you need, baby. That's all you need.
That's an incredible album. All right, this one, it kind of borders on both melodic death and black metal. This is Dissection and this is Storm of Light's Bane. This is some of the most impressive songwriting for both of those genres. These guys were from Sweden, but they were pretty much in a border town. I think the same place that Marduk came from.
Okay.
Right on the border of Norway and Sweden. So they got a little bit of both of those sounds. This has tons of black metal elements, but far more melodic black metal. And you get death metal elements, but also melodic death metal. And incredible songwriting on this. They only put out 3 studio albums, and then the frontman committed suicide in a interesting ritual in his house. Whatever.
It is what it is.
It is what it is. But he left behind some incredible work. A lot of people know about this album. It's one of those bridge albums between 2 different genres that really just it's its own real thing there.
That's what's kind of cool about this genre too. You can almost tell, like, it's a lot of it comes from the similar place, right?
Yeah.
But you can kind of hear different communities have different styles, and then oh, he's Swedish, oh, this is Norwegian, oh,
It becomes regional.
Yeah, exactly.
Night's Blood, especially on this album, one of the best songs on there. I've heard tons of different bands cover stuff off of this album. The second one, Somberlane, was also really good. I still don't own the last one. Eventually going to have to get that one, but super underrated band.
You don't have an album?
I know.
What the fuck?
There's shit that kind of falls under the radar.
I don't see how.
And then we got a couple more from me. Satyricon. Nemesis Divina. This was the first Satyricon album I ever got. And it is an incredible album. It's very melodic too. Like, this was definitely, it was still raw but very melodic. It kind of embodied both of those sides, which I really liked. And these guys are incredible songwriters. We're listening to them right now. This is their most recent album, and they're all over the damn map now. This was still more focused on the black metal side, and while it's still there, they incorporate other elements like just flat out rock now too, which is really interesting.
I want to rock,
but evilly.
I want to evilly rock.
Incredible album though. One of their best in my opinion. Definitely check it out. And then my final one. We said black metal was regional. Well, this band is from nowhere near Norway or Switzerland. This band is from Jerusalem. This is Melekash and their album Emissaries. This was another thing that proved me like metal and their culture can really mix together. This is like very Arabic Persian music mixed with black metal, and holy shit, it fucking works. The rhythms, they actually incorporate like blast beats and then almost move into that, you know, almost kind of like belly dancing kind of rhythm. It's incredible.
It probably gives it, I mean, I've never heard that, but I assume that whole different
it's insane.
drumming pattern, you know, and rhythm patterns give it a totally unique feel.
Oh yeah, and they definitely incorporate elements of thrash in here. Like, it's not all like ambient tremolo strumming, like they love riffs too, and it's even some proggier elements too. I mean, they have a song, Delusional Dreams. There's 2 acts to it, so, you know, writing things in acts is definitely kind of a proggy maneuver, but like right from the start, Rebirth of the Nemesis, like you hear all these different things just kind of working together, and it's a unique sound. Like there really isn't another black metal band I can think of that sounds like this, and it's kind of a cool thing to just see different cultures kind of mix up, and black metal come from a place you would not suspect black metal to ever come from. Tons of other albums too. I still got to get the rest of them. There's some early ones that are a little more expensive because they're out of print, but I'm gonna get them eventually. Awesome album.
Well, those are our picks on what got us into black metal. Once again, we apologize for being toolboxes and neglecting this genre. We really do love it, we swear. And so we're happy that we finally got to bring this one to you. Nick and I have been talking about doing this video for a couple weeks now. Like, yeah, we got to do it. Yeah, we got to do it. Let's do it. We got to do it. So here we are.
Here we are. So if you like this video, give it a thumbs up. And if you're new to the channel, sub. We got plenty of other videos out there to check out. And we like doing lists like this. Might do best of or worst of. I don't know. Tons of different shit. There's always tons of stuff to talk about in metal.
But also, we're interested to know what you guys think as well. We love reading your comments, suggestions. Once again, if we suck, tell us. If you agree with us, tell us. We just want to start some good conversation. So please let us know what you think in the comments, and we'll catch you on the next video.